AM, the Talk of Chicago. I am Vietnam veteran host Cliff Kelley. America's Heroes Group is a live streaming podcast, global platform, radio, print, and digital media broadcast show that empowers change agents through intentionally disseminating information, resources, and referrals to empower our military population.
And with that, welcome to America's Heroes Group. America's Heroes Group Roundtable with the Office of the Honorable Dennis Richard McDonough, who is the U.S. Secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs. Today is Saturday, February 4th, 2023. Our host is Cliff Kelley. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host, Army National Guard veteran. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have today, February, is Black History Month and American Heart Month. Very important to notice. We have our panelists with us now. Terrence Hayes, he's the press secretary and official spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. We're going to talk about the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs 2023 initiatives and agenda under Secretary McDonough. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me, Sean.
It's my pleasure. So tell us some of the things that President Biden signed into office this year. It promised to address Comprehensive Toxics PACT Act into law this summer. How does this new law impact veterans?
Yes, Sean. The president signed this bill into law August the 10th of 2022. So what this bill does, what this law now does, is it provides veterans, Vietnam War veterans, Gulf War veterans, and post 9/11 war veterans with more access than ever before to health care in the Department of Veterans Affairs, as well as access to benefits. And when you probably want to know, what are those benefits? It's for any of those veterans who have been impacted by what we call toxics, burn pits, radiation, Agent Orange. Any of those individuals, what we're doing a full court press in encouraging them and many times begging folks across the country who believe they have been impacted by any of those conditions to immediately call VA. Immediately run into a veteran service organization to file a claim today so we can get those benefits in their pockets as soon as possible. We're proud to announce that we started adjudicating these claims just recently, January 1st. That's as soon as we were able to adjudicate those claims. We currently have received about close to 280,000 claims thus far. And we know that to the average American, that seems like quite a bit of claims. But we feel that that's on the low end because this particular law potentially impacts 3.5 million men and women who serve this country. So, again, we're doing a full court press and educating and informing as many of these folks as possible across the country that we can about the importance behind them filing for their benefits today and hopefully seeking enrollment in healthcare so we can get them the care that they deserve.
I have to admit that is a very, very impressive and I think a noble thing that you guys have done in this administration to go out and address something and do it very quickly. Because when we started to address Agent Orange, that's a war that happened over 40 years ago, and we just have our troops back from Afghanistan. And now this administration had learned from the past and actually has done something. With the help of a lot of people, a lot of VSOs had to go in and actually speak up. Jon Stewart, the comedian, his work was instrumental in getting this done. So I really appreciate that as a veteran and thankful for that as a veteran. Me personally was not exposed to the burn pits that my brothers and sisters overseas were exposed to. But then it goes beyond that, like you mentioned, other toxics. That's really, really critical.
Yeah, Sean, and I think, when you look at this law and you put faces with this law, it becomes reality. So I'll give you an example. This bill was named after Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson. Heath Robinson was a Army National Guardsman himself, out of the state of Ohio, and we lost Sergeant Robinson at 39 years young due to his service, due to these toxins. And on August the 10th of 2022, when the president signed this bill into law, standing beside the president was Heath's wife, Danielle, and his daughter. And this is their legacy. And VA is charged now with carrying on with this legacy to ensure that men and women, who have these conditions, and folks can find the new conditions, the 23 new conditions on our website at va.gov/PACT, and that's PACT. And if they have any of those presumed conditions, VA basically says that you are entitled to benefits. The evidence, the burden of proof is no longer in the hands of the veteran, and it should have never been in the hands of the veteran. So again, it's very vital that we get this word out to as many people as possible, to include survivors, members of our military family, our veteran community who are no longer here. Their survivors can also file for benefits as well. So again, this is very vital that we get this out to as many people as possible, and I'm very thankful that I have the opportunity to join you today, Sean, to talk about it.
Glad you're here. Also, one thing that's news to a lot of people that we talk a lot about on our show, veteran homelessness. And
yes.
So what we understand is that homelessness has dropped 11% or more over the last 5 years. Can you go into that and give us some data on how that occurred and how the VA has been instrumental in making that happen?
Yeah, Sean, we're making steady progress. But until we get that number to zero, because let's be quite honest with you, no man and woman who signed up to serve this nation should be without shelter. Let's just call it what it is. It's a sad state to see men and women living in these cities across our wonderful nation, the greatest nation on the planet Earth, and these individuals are without homes. So that's number one. But we are making progress. We're making progress with our community partners, with our state and local governments as well, and many of our, public-private partnerships out there, just American citizens out there who want to serve veterans as well as veterans have served them. So we recently conducted what's called the point-in-time count. We conducted one here in D.C., the secretary just conducted one on Tuesday evening in Denver, and various other folks around VA participated in that as well across the country. And what that does is it gives us a snapshot of just one particular day in time of how many folks may be facing homelessness. And we chat with these individuals. We provide them resources as we're chatting with them, but we also take down information so we can get a good data set on, again, how many folks are out there facing homelessness, and not just veterans. We're counting all individuals facing homelessness. So last year, when Secretary McDonough took office, February of 2021, and into the summer, he went and visited Los Angeles. And at that time, there was this place called Veterans Row. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but it was this place on San Vicente Boulevard in the heart of Brentwood. And as you and I know, that's one of the most well-off communities in the United States. But at that time, there were 41 veterans in tents living along that strip. And they deemed it Veterans Row. And it was right outside of one of our VA campuses, the West LA campus.
Wow. And
the secretary visited that area, chatted with all 41 of those veterans facing homelessness. He returned to D.C., and he returned very angry. And he let it be known to all of us. And he instructed us that we needed to ensure that all 41 of those individuals would be off the streets and onto our West LA campus within 30 days. And you could probably imagine, folks are probably, looking with shock and, like how we're going to execute that. But when the boss said we were going to do it, that's what we were going to do, and that's what we did. All 41 of those veterans were then able to be housed on our campus. And then we took it a step further. The secretary said, hey, not only are we going to house those 41 individuals, but we're going to house an additional 500 in LA County by the end of 2021.
Wow.
And we did that, and we exceeded it by close to 200. And what we're proud of is that last year, 2022, the secretary said, you know what, this seems to be moving in the right direction. Let's permanently house, and again, this is permanently. This isn't temporary housing, folks. This is permanently housing, folks. He said, 2022, our goal is going to be to house 38,000 veterans for the entire year. Sean, I'm proud to announce that we exceeded that by close to 2,500. Wow. We house more than 40,000 veterans facing homelessness in permanent housing. And not only that, we're able to now provide them with the resources, the programs available to hopefully sustain this housing and help them maneuver and get to where they need to be. And that's a success story. And again, we're not going to stop until we ensure that these men and women who served our country so well have the housing that they deserve.
Can you walk me through the steps? Like, how do you get from that? Those are impressive numbers to take 40,000 people in 1 year off the streets, and this is nationwide. I'm assuming
nationwide.
Okay, so nationwide, you took 40,000 people off the streets. How can you expand on that to get that number closer to zero as far as veteran homelessness? And what
I mean, in the height of this situation, you go back about 12 years or so ago. The numbers were about 90-something thousand veterans facing homelessness. So that number now is anywhere between 30 and about 38, 39,000 on any given night. So you can see that we've already made large progress. But again, numerous factors have played into why we are where we are. Obviously, we were dealing with a unprecedented pandemic as well. They kind of played a role in all of this. So again, now we're doing a full court press since Secretary McDonough has been on board and since President Biden has been on board. So, we're not going to stop, Sean. Again, we believe that some of the measures that we took in Los Angeles can be implemented in cities across the country, like Chicago, like D.C., like Dallas. And we're going to implement those. And again, with the help of our partners, with the help of the state and local governments, I think we're going to eventually get that number down. But again, we won't stop until we get that number down to zero.
That's the right mission. Get it to zero. Let's do it. So my last question, we have about 9 minutes left, almost 8 minutes left. So tell us a little bit about the data and also the offerings at the let's get into this a little more closely. This is a very sensitive topic, and I want to make sure we get this phrased properly.
Yeah.
So abortion's been in the public mind recently, and there's a lot of controversy pro and against with people pro-life versus people that are pro-choice. But the VA recently began offering abortion counseling, and in certain cases, abortions to pregnant veterans and beneficiaries. Tell us more about that. Why did you guys start doing that?
Sean, it was a medical emergency. Bottom line. Again, the VA operates the largest integrated healthcare system in our country. Mm-hmm. And the largest cohort of veterans right now are our women veterans. There are about we see about 600,000 women veterans, but there's 300,000 women veterans of childbearing age that we see. And anytime one of those individuals comes to see us and they're faced with a challenge, we should be there to provide them the care that they need. Prior to Secretary McDonough instituting this interim final rule, allowing us to provide these procedures, we would have to turn these women away. We would have to send them or recommend that they go into the community. And that just wasn't acceptable, especially when you're talking in instances where it affected their health or it was a life and death situation, Sean. Again, these women veterans served their country honorably. And it is our duty. It's our top clinical, goal to provide these women with world-class care, especially life-saving care. Mm-hmm. So again, this was all about saving lives. This was all about ensuring that these women had the full suite of medical care when they come to their VA. So, again, we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to be there for these women when they need us most. And that's the sole purpose behind why we needed to do this, because, again, there were many times that clinicians had told the secretary that they were in a bind where women veterans were coming to them facing some very difficult health challenges, and they were limited in what they could provide. So, again, this is just another opportunity for us to deliver on that promise to all of our veterans, specific to our women veterans, that we're going to be there when they need us most, because they were there for us when we needed them most.
Does this pose any trick bags or any problems in a state where abortion is restricted? What does a veteran do, or what does someone do in those states? Do they have to travel to a different state?
Great question, because as you know, we have 1,800 facilities across the country. So, yes, we do have facilities in some of the states that have banned these procedures. But because since we fall under federal law, those state laws do not impact us. So again, to our veterans out there who are listening to this and faced with some serious health challenges, and especially our pregnant veterans out there, our facilities are welcome to you, are open to you. If you're faced with any of these challenges, we just urge you to get into our system. If you're not already enrolled, please visit va.gov to find out how to enroll there. Or you can also call 1-800-MY-VA-411, and then you can enroll on over the phone as well. But again, this is all about a medical emergency, ensuring that we give these benefits and we provide this health care to our women veterans when they need it most.
I really appreciate the compassion you have for your job. Most veterans, people that are served and put on the uniform, will always appreciate someone who really takes their job seriously and has attention to detail. Attention to detail is something that a veteran will recognize that someone has or does not have that. And I see that you have an attention to detail.
We appreciate it, Sean. As a veteran, Sean, I take this very personally. As you being my battle buddy, I take this very personal. This is about taking care of individuals like you and I. And I definitely take this role very personally, being the first black man or woman to hold this position as spokesperson for the department. So, again, this is important stuff. This is my life's work to serve these men and women who have served me so well. So, again, this isn't the VA of 10 years ago. This isn't even the VA of like 4 years ago, to be quite honest with you. There have been so many changes instituted to make VA more accessible and for the veteran to have a better experience now than ever before. We're seeing more veterans and providing more benefits than ever before. And the one takeaway I want everybody to leave with today is that no longer is VA trying to have you fit inside its system. We're instituting our system, and we're changing and adapting our system to fit into the veterans' everyday lives. And that's the way it should have been, and that's the way it is now. So, again, to any of those veterans out there who may have had a bad experience with VA, because, trust me, I know there are some times where there are bad experiences, I'm asking you to just give us another chance. Give this team the opportunity to provide you with the world-class care that you've earned and the benefits that you deserve.
Those are good words to live by. I appreciate those words. I was going to ask you what it meant to you to be the first black VA press secretary. However, nowadays in modern times, when I see a first black anything in any position of importance, and particularly as something that's as eminent, as preeminent as what you have as a title, I see you as a qualified and an excellent person. Because what you expressed today, and I've talked to many people in high positions, you are among the top of all of them. And I appreciate that. You're a man of excellence, attention to detail. I appreciate that.
Well, Sean, as you know, many of us just need the opportunity, my brother. And I'm thankful that President Biden saw that in me to give me this opportunity to engage and be that spokesperson for the department. But I take this role extremely seriously because you know what? while I may be the first, I damn sure don't want to be the last. So I'm working hard every day to ensure that folks who look like me have another opportunity at this.
And I think that'll be the case. This is a great show. Terrence Hayes, Press Secretary and official spokesperson of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Cliff Kelley, Vietnam veteran, co-founder, and host of America's Heroes Group. We have helped hundreds and thousands of veterans find the resources they needed to move on past trauma, find the services they need to heal, find training, jobs, and housing. That's our mission. To support this mission so that we can continue our work and have even more veteran stories of overcoming and success, we need your help. Right now, please consider making a donation to America's Heroes Group. Dig deep and give what you can to support this mission and help those veterans in need. You can donate through Chase Bank's Zelle app by adding America's Heroes Group as a recipient with our phone number 312-804-5831. You can donate through PayPal on our website, americashg.org. From the home page, go to donations, or you can go straight to www.americashg.org/donations. And finally, you can send a check to America's Heroes Group, Inc., 155 North Quaker Drive, Suite 4250, Chicago, Illinois, 60606. Hi, this is Cliff Kelley, Vietnam veteran, co-founder, and host of America's Heroes Group. We have helped hundreds and thousands of veterans find the resources they needed to move on past trauma, find the services they need to heal, find training, jobs, and housing. That's our mission. To support this mission so that we can continue our work and have even more veteran stories of overcoming and success, we need your help. Right now, please consider making a donation to America's Heroes Group. Dig deep and give what you can to support this mission and help those veterans in need. You can donate through Chase Bank's Zelle app by adding America's Heroes Group as a recipient with our phone number 312-804-5831. You can donate through PayPal on our website, americashg.org. From the home page, go to donations, or you can go straight to www.americashg.org/donations.
Back to America's Heroes Group with our roundtable with our sponsor and partner, RHF Ninja Warrior Competition. Today is Saturday, February 4th, 2023. February is Black History and American Heart Month. Our host is Cliff Kelley. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have a partner on the line, Mr. Darren Jeffrey. He's a founding board member of RHF and also the original course creator builder for the TV show you may know, American Ninja Warrior on NBC. He has a panelist with us, two panelists, matter of fact. Deanna Jurgens, former U.S. aviator, wife, mother, RHF co-family founder, and former exec director of the RHF. And Richard Jurgens, might be a familiar last name, retired U.S. Army colonel and aviator. He was a commander of the company, battalion, and brigade level. a company commander, brigade commander, and a brigade and a battalion commander. He is a husband, father, and RHF co-founder, former RHF president, and current RHF board member. And we're going to talk about military families. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing awesome.
Yes, we are.
You definitely got the
Hi,
family
Sean.
here. You got a husband and wife on the line. Probably the first time we did that on the show.
Absolutely, guys. Hey, this is Darren. It's great to be back, and I just am honored to have Rich and Diana able to join us today. I'll just give you a quick little snapshot. When I first met them, we were at the beginning stages of RHF, and the thing that struck me the most was that this is an amazing husband and wife duo, because they were so able to fit the new scope of work and the additional bandwidth required for RHF to come into the world, and for them to be actively able to support it on top of supporting their careers and their families and how they've done things over the years is just, that's why I wanted them to sit on the show. I think they're going to be an inspiration to everybody that's listening. So thank you, Diana. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
The privilege. Yes.
So our pleasure's all ours. So tell us a little bit about yourselves, Diana and Rich. So I get your names mixed up. I'm stuck on Jurgens. I wanted to say your last name, but I got to say your first name. So Diana and Rich, so tell us about yourselves. So how did you guys? First of all, what did you guys do career-wise before you guys met?
Well, this is great. I was one of those. I was one of those young boys that just, I felt like I was born to be a soldier. So a lot of my life leading up to college and my preparation to enter the Army was all about that. And so the storyteller in the family, the great storyteller in the family, is my wife. So I will tell you, it was really in the spring of 1985 when I was just getting ready to graduate from college and head off to my first bit of training, that I met this beautiful young lady that I now, my goodness, 37 years ago, or 37 years later, get to say is my bride of 37 years. So I'd like to turn it over to her, because she is truly a great storyteller.
So Diana, tell us how you guys met. Women always have the better stories. So tell me what happened.
Okay. Well, we were at, so both of us went to college, went through the ROTC program within our universities, 2 separate states, and ended up at the George Marshall Conference at Virginia Military, VMI, in Virginia, as Rich said, the spring of 1985. And we literally sat next to each other in this huge arena. And it was incredible that we met right there, never knowing we were going to be married. But we were both heading off to Fort Rucker, Alabama that June for our initial training, which was flight school, aviation in helicopters. And so that was our initial introduction to one another. And then again, 2 months later, we end up at Fort Rucker, Alabama in the same platoon, same squad, standing side by side. And we trained together for 3 months in our initial basic course into aviation. And so that's where our journey began.
Wow. And you guys have the job that I always wanted, aviation. I always wanted to be a Black Hawk helicopter, but didn't make it. Didn't get a slot.
Okay. Well, you're doing something else more important. That's what you're doing.
Trying to. So tell me, what was it like being a female going through flight school, particularly in 1985?
Honestly, so good question. I was quite strong-willed in those days. There were 3 women in a class of 63 for me, so that's just the numbers tell you the story. And back to the military in that time frame, you did have to work harder and just try to stand out. And, aviation wasn't something I thought as my husband wanting to serve his nation. I did want to serve my nation. Aviation came to me my junior year in college, as Rich too. We both attended an advanced course at that time, they called it, and we were introduced to the different branches of the Army. And he and I both pursued aviation. So, again, it was light for women as far as numbers, but we all were treated equally. We worked hard, and it really was an incredible journey, a great way to start my life. Again, met my husband. We were not obviously married at that time, became good friends with a bunch of other great people who were also pursuing aviation and serving their nation as young second lieutenants.
Wow. And what was it like working together? So you're falling for each other, dating perhaps. What was that like?
Well, we were in school, so it wasn't, and we were in two different classes. So there was no competition there. He went to one class and off, and I was in another after those initial 3 months. So we both were pursuing what we were there to do, serve our nation as Army aviators, and of course we were learning to fly aircraft. So it was a school environment. My husband is very intelligent, so it wasn't as hard for him as it was for me. I worked really hard, but it was an incredible year that we spent at Fort Rucker, Alabama. And our story, again, as we learned, got to know each other better, and I really admired the man that he was, even at that young age. And so quickly in the spring, he would tell you first, though. He liked me first. But anyway, we
whoa, hold on. It's not that I would just tell you that. It was true. It was true, Sean.
True.
I knew fairly early on. She just took a little bit longer.
I did. I really did, because as I said, I was very strong-willed and hard-headed at that time in my young years. But here's the cool story. We both had dreams of where we wanted to go from flight school. My husband wanted to go to Panama. I wanted to go to Germany. So we put down Fort Lewis, Washington as our second choice. And we just said, okay, if we get that, then we're meant to be together. And we did get that. So there you go.
Wow.
That's how we started our 37-year journey.
Wow.
Was at Fort Lewis, Washington in 1986.
This will be helpful for a lot of veteran families. A lot of people have met in the military, got married in the military, live on base.
Yeah.
Or live off post sometimes. But so how did you manage family and work when you first started out? Did you have kids? How did that all work out? And then where are you today?
Okay, so we started out in actually the same brigade, but two separate battalions at Fort Lewis, which was a good thing. My husband was an attack helicopter pilot, and I was a support helicopter pilot. So that was good and healthy for our marriage, because otherwise too much competition. So that was our initial 5 years in the military. In fact, that was was 5 years, because our first daughter was born in that season. And it really did take teamwork. Being in the same brigade, often gone to training at separate times, gone just away for separate times. And it really was teamwork. And it really wasn't an easy season, because there was so much on our plate. And of course, when you serve your nation, that mission comes first. And it has to. So the reason I stepped out of the military was because even though initial plan for both Rich and I was to serve for 20 years or beyond retirement, my first daughter changed my priorities. And it was very hard to juggle. So, Sean, I would say we did work together well, and we made it through those 5 years, but it helped me refocus a little bit to be able to step out of the military and then know how to support my soldier and take care of my family, and yet use all that I learned in the military still to serve the military family. So it's just a little bit of a refocus for me. Rich continued on, and Rich, you can tell the rest of your story, but that is how it all began.
Yeah, and Sean, I think, the what isn't was pretty important in those 37 years. We had 8 children altogether. 8 daughters to be exact, and
Full house.
It was a full house, and it's a house that we moved 14 times in that time period. So probably not a typical typical family life, but I will tell you, it was really a story of a family growing together, and and through some really challenging times. When you're all when all your daughters are laying on a pile of bags in at SeaTac Airport in Seattle, waiting for a plane that's going to take you on an 18-hour flight to Seoul, Korea, for a 2-year duty station, time there. It's we have a picture of it. This big pile of bags and all the girls asleep on top of the bags, and honestly, I look back on it and I sometimes wonder how we got there, but then or how we got through it. But Sean, I will tell you, and it kind of goes back to my initial point. I knew way early on. It took her a little bit longer, but I am one of those blessed guys that married way up, if you know what I mean.
I understand. So can you tell me how do you think it helped me or affected your children to have those experiences?
Oh, I would love to jump in on this, Sean, because I was just thinking it. Let me tell you that story he just told. Mm-hmm. It did include our youngest 1-year-old baby girl laying over a duffel bag. Okay, with just a place to sleep. We got on an airplane with over 200 soldiers that were on their way to Korea. So what that did in the hearts of our children. Now, the 1-year-old does not remember that, obviously, but all the other girls remember. And here's the key, and here's the cool piece of this military life. You raise military families. Mm-hmm. So currently we have 4 of our 8 serving their nation in some capacity. Our oldest is still on active duty. Our second was an Army nurse, stepped away, married her soldier. So now she's supporting. He now switched branches, but he's still in the military. She's supporting him. Our third daughter married a soldier here at Fort Bragg, and she's supporting her soldier who's serving in Kansas. Wow. Our sixth daughter married an airman. Took a little bit to get him in the door because he was an Army. But truly, you raise military families when you serve your nation. And all of our daughters have a heart for the military. Wow. All of our daughters have been involved at RHF. All of them have supported, volunteered, been in it since the beginning like we have, because they know the reason why it matters. Wow. Because they've been those kids who need that kind of support and that connection.
So it makes them better prepared to be also military parents as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's the secret. Wow. So how did Darren trick you into becoming part members of RHF?
I don't think it was me. And I don't think it was me. I was introduced to them. I think Josh had a big part to play in that.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, the founder, the true founder of RHF, Josh Ware, who I think was did an interview a couple weeks back. We've known him for years. Even before he was married, we knew him as a single soldier, and we've been friends with he and his wife Angelina for years. And I was actually with him on the day that he purchased the property that Rick's Place, which is our place for the foundation where we have our events and host soldiers and their families. I walked the property with him on the day he purchased it, and he would tell you that some of the vision for the Rick Herrema Foundation came for us and our love for military families and our desire to create a space for families to stay connected and enjoy the outdoors and each other. Josh would say that we Diane and I kind of imparted some of that vision to him, but it's just been neat to kind of see from that first walk on the property to the first board meeting and where we just started pulling RHF together, and then it's about that time we met Darren, and so we all kind of came from a lot of different places to come together, and that's kind of how we met Darren.
Wow.
And Sean, let me say, Darren's vision for the Ninja Warrior course on our property was initially just incredible. And we were looking at a property that we literally cleared ourselves with the hands of other military families. We called them work days, met together on the property, and it became community. We were meeting the mission before we had anything on the property. And Josh had met Darren. Darren sees the property. He's like, hey, I can hang ropes here. I can put obstacles. I can do all. He started going with his vision. And I was there that first Ninja Warrior course working with Darren as then the first executive director, and it was incredible. And it has only grown and grown and grown since then. And we have incredible people, a part of this organization like Darren, who want to thank the military family for what they do every day. So Darren is a dear friend of ours, and it's been our privilege to meet him and come alongside him in his support for what RHF does for the military family here at Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
That's really impressive. Now, have you guys done the obstacle course?
Yes.
I have not. I have not. I have been there for every obstacle course. I will not tell you I have gone on the elite course. I have only watched it be built numerous times. I have physically helped tear it down, but I am there cheering them on. I'm there in support. I'm there as a volunteer.
And the elite course is over water. Is that correct? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You go all that water.
Over water.
How deep is the water?
It's about 6 feet, 5 or 6 feet deep, isn't it, Darren?
Yes. Just deep enough to let you know you didn't make it.
Yeah, and for the record, Sean, I found the water very quickly. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I didn't make it very far through the course.
But I will say, Sean, our Ninja Warrior course is one of our just prime events that we do each year. And again, as I said, I've been there each year, and to watch and to help plan it. I've planned it a couple of years, and to watch Darren's crew come in, start building that course. We round out that team that he brings with volunteers, and they come and they are so excited to be a part, and then to start opening the property to our soldiers and their families. It's just an incredible event. And everyone asks, when's the Ninja course? When's the Ninja course? Because everybody wants to participate.
So for the audience, Darren, tell us how can people get information about the Ninja Warrior course at Rick's Place, and also how to get there, all the information they need to know just when they show up, what they should bring, how to get all the information.
Absolutely. So www.rhfnow.org. Get that website pulled up, visit the website, surf around, see what's going on. We have a dedicated page for the Ninja courses. So as the Ninja program comes online for 2023, you'll see our dates, and then eventually, if you sign up to be on our newsletter, you'll start getting newsletters each month, and that will keep you informed as to when registration opens. Now, if you're active duty or retired, you and your family can travel to Fort Bragg, Fayetteville, Fort Bragg, and you can come to Rick's Place and register for free. And we'll give you a time slot. You come out and you can hit the courses. The kids can hit the intermediate courses if they want to run side by side with their parents or other siblings. Great competition piece there. And then for the hardcore ninjas that want to feel what it's really like, the real deal ninja, which has about a 90% failure rate somewhere through the course. But it's the real deal. If you want to feel that course, then you sign up for the elite course. All of it's free. Military families, active duty or retired. So come on out, get signed up, and keep an eye on us, and we'll see you when you get there.
So, Darren, what's the future for RHF as you see it? What's we talked about this a little bit on the boat. How do you see the future of RHF?
Well, listen, I just want to tag team first quickly about the Ninja course. The reason the Ninja course, and it is a future of RHF, it's one of our, again, prime programs, is because, we strengthen military families. This is our mission statement, through fun, quality outdoor activity. And, when you put families together who've been apart for a season, but they come and do something like that together, children forget that dad was just gone or mom was gone for 15 months because now they've made a memory, and quality time together. So the future of RHF is to continue to meet that mission right here at Fort Bragg, the largest military installation in the world. And then we are still pursuing our vision to expand the Rick Herma Foundation to other locations, because the truth is every military family deserves a Rick's Place close to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sean, and if I may add, the good thing about having a group of military folks is, we have a very disciplined and deliberate approach, and we are, our goal is to expand, but we want to expand the right way. We are a nonprofit. RHF exists because of the gifts and donations we receive from people who believe in what we're doing. But we have a real responsibility to steward that well. So, and we're still relatively new as a nonprofit. So we want to make sure that we still have a few things to do here at Fort Bragg, in the Fort Bragg area. We want to make sure that we do it right, that we've learned all the lessons that we needed to learn about how we built here, so that when we go to expand, we do that well, and that we're good stewards of the resources that people give to us.
I mean, I see a vision one day where I see a Rick's Place or something similar to a Rick's Place outside of every military base in the country. I think that would be awesome, because there's no shortage of people and families that need this. And
that's absolutely right.
I mean, it's just fun. I mean, we talk about all kinds of different programs and things like that, but I mean, having something that's out there that you can have fun with.
Yeah.
That's what.
And again,
about.
Sean, fun connects families. It just does. They start laughing. They forget that they've been apart. They forget that it's been a long duty week and Dad hasn't been at the dinner table or Mom all week. And they show up at RHF, outdoor fun, and it changes everything for them.
So we got about 4 minutes left. So can you tell us words of wisdom? So in military families that are developing now in the military, what advice would you give them to help them be successful? What are some of the challenges you ran into as a military couple?
Well, I will tell you one challenge, and this is why Rick's Place is it's just so passionate in my heart to make this thing go and happen, and why we're involved. But when we first got to Fort Bragg in 2005, we came from Korea. So you heard our story going. We had just come from Korea, and I was pregnant with my 8th daughter coming home. We were here on the ground 3 weeks, and my husband deployed to Afghanistan. So I did have my daughter, and he left 2 weeks later. So Rick's Place, having a place like that to go, the importance of it for families, supporting families, being there for families. Again, I can't say what we're doing. Richie, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say, I've always felt like being a soldier was a calling.
Yes,
and it's really a family calling. I mean, I think the families that we see that struggle most is where the soldier has their Army life, and the family has the family life, and the family isn't any way connected to the Army. They don't know what unit their soldier's in. They don't know really what their soldier does. So it's this whole idea, this challenge of, if you decide to kind of, separate your life as a family, it causes real problems. So, not only for us, it wasn't just me that embraced the calling to be a soldier. Our family embraced it. My bride embraced it. Our children embraced it. Because it can get hard, and so embrace the calling. And
so good.
Honestly, yeah.
Can I just tag and stay connected? Richie said it. Don't try to separate yourself. Staying connected, but not just with exactly where your husband's working, but with any military family. Stay connected. And, perspective is everything. So I, too, agree with what he said. It's a call on the whole family. And my last word of wisdom would be, make every new assignment, every new place you go, home. Because you're there for short periods of time, and sometimes you're allowed to stay a little longer. But making it home, it is what builds that community that you absolutely need to do the lifestyle that God and that you've been called to do.
I believe that.
And I think the last thing, speaking from the soldier's perspective, there was a time in there where there was about a 12-year stretch where I was gone more than I was home, and when you're deployed, it's like it's 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and even longer, and that you develop this tempo and this speed in your life, and I think I struggled with this. I will tell you, coming home, slowing down, and reconnecting with the family. I think that soldiers coming home and being intentional about that is really, really important.
Darren Jeffrey, thank you for bringing two wonderful guests, Richard Juergens, Diana Juergens. Thank you for your time.
Beautiful.
Thank you,
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Rich. Thanks, Diana.
Love to have
Thank
you
you,
back.
Sean.
This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Cliff Kelley, Vietnam veteran, co-founder, and host of America's Heroes Group. We have helped hundreds and thousands of veterans find the resources they needed to move on past trauma, find the services they need to heal, find training, jobs, and housing. That's our mission. To support this mission so that we can continue our work and have even more veteran stories of overcoming and success, we need your help. Right now, please consider making a donation to America's Heroes Group. Dig deep and give what you can to support this mission and help those veterans in need. You can donate through Chase Bank's Zelle app by adding America's Heroes Group as a recipient with our phone number 312-804-5831. You can donate through PayPal on our website, americashg.org. From the home page, go to donations, or you can go straight to www.americashg.org/donations. And finally, you can send a check to America's Heroes Group, Inc., 155 North Quaker Drive, Suite 4250, Chicago, Illinois, 60606. Hi, this is Cliff Kelley, Vietnam veteran, co-founder, and host of America's Heroes Group. We have helped hundreds and thousands of veterans find the resources they needed to move on past trauma, find the services they need to heal, find training, jobs, and housing. That's our mission. To support this mission so that we can continue our work and have even more veteran stories of overcoming and success, we need your help. Right now, please consider making a donation to America's Heroes Group. Dig deep and give what you can to support this mission and help those veterans in need. You can donate through Chase Bank's Zelle app by adding America's Heroes Group as a recipient with our phone number 312-804-5831. You can donate through PayPal on our website, americashg.org. From the home page, go to donations, or you can go straight to www.americashg.org/donations. And finally, you can send a check to America's Heroes Group, Inc., 155 North Quaker Drive, Suite 4250, Chicago, Illinois, 60606. Hi, this is Cliff Kelley, Vietnam veteran, co-founder, and host of America's Heroes Group. We have helped hundreds and thousands of veterans find the resources they needed to move on past trauma, find the services they need to heal, find training, jobs, and housing. That's our mission. To support this mission so that we can continue our work and have even more veteran stories of overcoming and success, we need your help. Right now, please consider making a donation to America's Heroes Group. Dig deep and give what you can to support this mission and help those veterans in need. You can donate through Chase Bank's Zelle app by adding America's Heroes Group as a recipient with our phone number 312-804-5831. You can donate through PayPal on our website, americashg.org. From the home page, go to donations, or you can go straight to www.americashg.org/donations. And finally, you can send a check to America's Heroes Group, Inc., 155 North Quaker Drive, Suite 4250, Chicago, Illinois, 60606.
Welcome back to America's Heroes Group, our roundtable. We are globally connected. Military Families Matters with partner family caregiver Keisha L. Jackson. Today is Saturday, February 4th, 2023. February is Black History and American Heart Month. Our host is Cliff Kelley. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have our partner on the line, Keisha L. Jackson. She's a U.S. Air Force veteran and family caregiver. And she brought us again a wonderful panelist, and that is Dr. Robert W. Turner II, a former professional football player and also currently an assistant professor at the Department of Clinical Research and Leadership at the George Washington University School of Medicine and Health Science. How are you guys doing today?
Hey, Sean. I'm doing well.
Doctor?
Doing well.
I'm feeling blessed. Very good. My dad's having a great day today, and we all things blessing. So it's all good.
Glad you guys have you here. Glad to have you here. So we're going to continue the conversation, the Black male caregiver of loved ones with dementia. We talked about this a little bit before. Go ahead.
Just before you all get into that conversation, and I definitely want to leave way for you all to really get into it since we didn't have a lot of time last time. But I did want to mention that the third Friday in February is every year is National Caregiver Day. And so I wanted to just recognize all of my fellow caregivers out there, professional, independent, private, informal, and fair family caregivers, and say thank you. Often you don't look to be thanked for what you do, but caregivers do a lot and are definitely appreciated.
Wow, that's really amazing. And also, that's one thing that's so important to give recognition, though. Even though you may not be looking for anything in return, that does help to be appreciated.
Yeah. And then the other thing I'll mention, and then allow for you and Dr. Turner to move in and into your conversation. I mentioned when I was caring for my mom and how I got into this topic of caregiving was I started going to conferences, and I noticed that there were a lot of people there, but there were not a lot of people of color, and there were not a lot of men, in particular our Black men there that were there. And so to have Dr. Turner again back on the show this week, since we had him just in December, I'm just so excited about the fact that you and Dr. Turner will be able to dialogue. So I'm going to step out and allow you all to go to it.
So, Doctor, what can you tell us about the role of a Black male, particularly being a caregiver? It's disappointing to hear that not many Black caregivers came up for the event, but tell us what you see and how what it means to you.
Well, first thing I want to do is just, and Keisha, I really appreciate you saying what you did, leading into the conversation, because even though Black men are not showing up at conferences and a lot of, African-American Black folks are not showing up at these places to get help, we in fact are. There's a lot of us. The data that I have, and it's really hard to kind of get my hands on the data, but everything that I've read suggests that anywhere between 35 and 45% of all caregivers in the Black community are men, right? And so what I always say, and I think I mentioned this the last time we talked, but we're hidden right in plain sight. And if you think about, lots of times where I think the big challenge for us as men is we don't necessarily think of ourselves as nurturing or caring for other people. But if you ask someone, are you taking care of your mother? Are you taking care of your loved one? They'll say, absolutely. That. And again, this kind of goes back to the same thing as we're not really seen as the men being home taking care of our parents. But we know many of us who live in these communities, that couldn't be anything farther from the truth. The other thing I want to mention is that, men within the community sometimes are not even looking after their own, biological or their married loved one. They're looking after someone right down the street, not going in, looking after them, seeing if you need medication, see if you need this, you need that. We're playing lots of different roles that we don't often think of ourselves as playing those roles, and we don't get the recognition or the credit that we are doing this. And so one of the reasons I'm here is to say that the biggest message, if I want anyone out there listening, when it comes to taking care of anyone, but particularly Black men, if you're in that role taking care of someone, you know how important it is to be around for that individual. And what I'm on a crusade is I really want you to take care of your own health, because you can't take care of anyone else unless you take care of yourself.
Now, when I took care of my mother, she had a stroke a couple of years back. And so I went home to help her out, and I was driving back and forth from Chicago to D.C. to Maryland, basically. But I never saw myself as a caregiver. I just saw myself as just helping mom out. But then you also have that stigma out there that, as black men, we get the reputation of not taking care of our kids, as always being absent and things like that. We're not looked at as the caregiver. If anything, we're the threat. Or irresponsible, or not the person that, it's usually the black female that's the one that holds the family together. In the mindset of pop culture and the mindset of what is how people kind of view us and what we hear all the time, even in media. So when you look at these numbers that you're mentioning, 35 to 45% of people, black men of the black community, men taking care of or being caregivers, that is something that goes way against the mindset of what we think and the stereotype. So how do you challenge the stereotype, and what needs to be done to kind of show the truth of what's really going on?
Well, I think there's a couple things, but you're absolutely right. One, we may use different language in our community. Just like, you're a great example of this. I use the word caregiver because I'm a researcher. I've been trained. I spend a lot of time around professionals. I'm very deeply ensconced with the Alzheimer's Association. This is nomenclature that they use, caregivers, right? Well, we may not use that, but, ultimately, we do talk about going down and taking care of grandma, auntie, looking after. I'll stop in and look after you. Right. That's the wording that we often use. And like you said, it was nothing for you to get in the car and drive, and you didn't use the word, caregiver. So just because that's the word that everybody else is using, that doesn't mean that we're not having prominent roles in our community and within our families. And just to say this, I'll give you a couple. And I have a good friend who's doing kind of the very same thing. He's a professor as well. He's looking after, that's what we do, is we look after. I'm going to make sure that you're all right, take care of you, those kinds of things. So I think we have to, the first thing we have to do is give ourselves a little license, a little leeway, that we don't have to use the language of everybody else to define what we're doing. That's number one. But I think the other thing that will help us come out of the shadows is that we have to redefine, in some respects, what it means to be a man. You don't have to suffer in silence. You don't have to be the only one doing all this. You can step out and tell your friends. Look, one of the things that I have found by taking care of my dad is that when I talk to my male friends, I say, hey, listen, I've moved back to take care of my dad. So it means that some of my social life is not going to be the same way. But my friends, my closest friends, both inside of academia and science, but just my boys, they are saying to me, hey, we applaud you. We want to learn from you because we understand that this might be coming down the pipe for us. So I found a lot of strength in my community by telling my other brothers that this is what I'm going through. And they've been there very supportive for me. And it gives you other people within that, who going through the same thing to say, well, I can step up and say that that's what I'm doing too. I'm looking after my mother. I'm looking after my father. I'm looking after my brother, my aunt. That's what I'm doing too. So coming out of the shadows and talking about it is going to help us a lot.
What I notice in my community a lot is with the younger generation, or I don't say the younger generation, but the parents that are raising children today, young children. I'm in that group as well. But there is sometimes some families have a network where they're communicating with other families and sharing some of the responsibilities, which I think is smart, and I think it's good for the kids. It's good for the families, because maybe if one couple wants to go out and have a date night, then another family can babysit. Or if somebody is going to the park or going someplace, they can say, hey, why don't you all bring the whole gang along, and so everybody goes, files into the family van, and then goes on a trip, and maybe mom and dad or somebody can have a break to do something else. Is that mindset common among people who are taking care of not kids but parents or adults or a loved one who is an adult that needs care?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is recognize that in our country, when it comes to older adults, I think one of the things that has hurt us in the black community, we used to live in the same neighborhoods. We used to live in the communities. My dad has 9 siblings. My grandmother had 9 siblings, and my grandfather had 9 siblings. When they all moved up from North Carolina to New Jersey, the whole enclave lived by each other, right? So back in the day, when my great aunt started, we used to say, well, she's a little senile or she's a little forgetful or whatever. Unfortunately, a lot of times, a lot of families, they put them up on the third floor and kind of just forget about them up there. But the one thing we did have is we had a community all around us, right? So you helped each other in so many different ways. Now that we've moved, my siblings one lives in Portland, Oregon, one lives in Rhode Island, another one lives down in Virginia, another one lives up in upstate New York. It's very hard to have that, that family to draw on all the time. So I would just encourage people to find a social network, whether it's your boys that you went to college with, the high school friends you went with, people from your church, your fraternity. You cannot be a caregiver effectively by yourself. You're going to need that social support. Just like when you're raising kids, right? Sometimes somebody got to be there to pick up the kids from after school or take them to help you, to take them to sports. You're going to need that same kind of support when you're looking after a loved one. And in my case, my dad has dementia.
I think that's words of wisdom, particularly. Like you said, just like you take our kids will go and get a ride from the neighbor to school one day, and then some days we'll take the kids to school. But we got to get that mentality at the community level with our adults. I think it seems like we still are not bringing to the forefront the idea of we have an aging population in this country. And at some point, we're going to all have to chip in and do a better job of taking care of our elders.
No question. And on that point, which these numbers are staggering. I don't want to overwhelm people with numbers, but I think right now, the one group, here's something I just want us to think about. The group that has the highest risk or the highest incidence of Alzheimer's disease are Black women. Women in total have they have a higher incidence of Alzheimer's disease than men. But Black women, so it hits our community the hardest of any other community, more than Hispanics, more than Asians, more than white. Black women they're more susceptible. They're at the higher incidence. But at the same time, where then means that, Black men there's more of us that have to step up. So it's hitting our community harder. And we have fewer resources to draw from. As an example, I think I mentioned to you before that annually the Alzheimer's Association suggests that about $256 billion of unpaid caregiving resources are spent in households by family members and loved ones providing care. And an overwhelming percentage of that is coming from the Black community. And we're expecting what we call a silver tsunami coming forward, where within, I think by 2030, we'll have more people over the age of 65 than in any other point in history. So if you think about what does that mean to our communities, what does that mean for Black men when we have to take care of more women in our community? That means that we really have to find internal resources to support one another than waiting for the government, than waiting for anyone else. We're going to have to collectively, inside of our communities, figure out how to support one another as we support this growing neurodegenerative disease in our community.
Tell like Paul Revere now, because that's really important to get that message out. We have an aging population. At some point, that silver tsunami is going to hit us, and that's going to put strains on Social Security. It's going to put strains on a lot of government agencies and resources. Do you see the government doing enough to really take this seriously, and do they have the tools and the understanding of the problem to address it?
Well, I think this. I think there's an incredible amount of money pouring into research. When I first started this, I think. About 8 years ago, the National Institute of Aging, their budget for Alzheimer's research, dementia research, was about $450 million. And in that 7-year period, it has increased. It is now over $3 billion, almost $3.5 billion. There's a great deal of money going into that. Where we see much less money and really trying to figure out what's the best way to spend that money is in caregiving. Because if you think about it, again, right, Social Security is not going to do it. We have a housing problem right now. People have to go to work. I really feel for, and I'm very concerned about the sandwich generation. I have a good friend who played in the NFL. He played for the Detroit Lions. He's got young kids at home. They're, one's just starting high school, where his last one's just starting high school. But both his mom and dad have some real physical issues, and they're starting to move into the mental issues. Where are the resources that are necessary to help them is really, really difficult. And in his instance, his sister lives in Detroit, continues to live down the street from the parents. He lives in North Carolina. So it's really challenging for him to go back and forth between North Carolina and up to Detroit and help his sister provide the care for the parents. His first question to me is, Rob, where do I turn to find the resources that I need? Right. So it's a question about, is there resources available? How much of those resources can you get access? But the big question is, where do you find them? Is there a caregiver around? Is there what we would say is a case management worker around that can help me marshal all of the resources? So the big things are, one, is you get in that crisis period when it first happens, but then two is when you try to find a way where you can have some kind of routine in life and the resources that you need once you over that crisis period to that day-to-day interactions by looking after and taking care of your loved ones.
So someone gets the news. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sean, let me just interject. That's why I love having these conversations and bringing in the guest panelists to talk, to be able to help people to put things in place before. And I'll keep going back to one of my guests that was on before. She was on in January, Loretta. And when her mom was diagnosed with dementia, instead of signing up at that particular time when she first learned that her mother had dementia, she didn't sign up through the local area agency on aging. She felt that financially she was okay to take care of things and manage things. She waited 4 years later to sign up, and then she was like number 28,000 on the list. And it took her another 8 years to get to the top of the list. And so that's why it's so important to have these conversations, to have these topics, and even kind of throw around the word caregiver, because others are using it. And by using that, they're learning a little bit more about the resources. And then within our community, because we see it as what we do, what we were taught, how we were raised, and this is what we do, those finances or those programs out there, a lot of times we don't hear about them and we don't even think about them, but they're out there for us.
So where do you find those resources? What's the first, if a person finds out today that their mother has a stroke or had a stroke, and then they have to go move back home to take care of them, what's the first place they should call?
I always say, for me, the local area agency, because I would start with your local areas, because if there's, something on the national or federal level, it may be a little difficult to get to. But when you start with your local resources, that's always a good network. I partner with AARP, sorry, they just slipped my mind, with AARP, and they have so many different resources, a part of the veterans community. There's the Red Cross, but I would always still go back starting with your local resources, and not just that, your church, your neighbors, your friends, but sometimes you have to be able to come above yourself, because sometimes we don't want people to know that this is going on in our household, and it could be something that's out there or someone that can share information to help us.
And Keisha, one day we're going to talk about the veteran benefits for, I believe it's respite care. Respite care, or it might be at-home care or skilled care for at-home disabled veterans or people that need caregiving. Because I know there's two programs out there, and I did this for a veteran a few years ago who was in dire straits, didn't have anyone around him to take care of him. So I was trying to find people that could help him. So I just called VA, and then they gave me these two options. But nobody had any information about the options. Nobody knew anything that could tell me anything about, you're like, well, I think this guy over here does it, or this guy over there does it, or call this person over there. And then, no, we don't do that over here. So I got the runaround. We got to go back and pick this topic up. We got about 30 seconds left. Keisha, last words?
No, I'll turn it over to Dr. Turner.
Dr. Turner?
Well, yeah, let me just say to that last question you had, especially if you find yourself in a hospital with a loved one, like a stroke or something like that, most often the hospital will have some kind of case management worker or a social worker or something. Start writing out, ask that person right there, where do I go for help? Who can help me? there's always definitely the county. You start with, especially if you're looking at older adults, they can help you. And if you have a primary care physician, ask them where do I start? Because you can't. Oftentimes you feel paralyzed when you're in that crisis point. You need someone to help you carry the ball for a little while.
Keisha L. Jackson, U.S. Air Force veteran and family caregiver. Dr. Robert W. Turner II is a former professional football player and currently assistant professor in the Department of Clinical Research and Leadership at the George Washington University School of Medicine and Health Science. Thank you for your time. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Sean.
This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Cliff Kelley, Vietnam veteran, co-founder, and host of America's Heroes Group. We have helped hundreds and thousands of veterans find the resources they needed to move on past trauma, find the services they need to heal, find training, jobs, and housing. That's our mission. To support this mission so that we can continue our work and have even more veteran stories of overcoming and success, we need your help. Right now, please consider making a donation to America's Heroes Group. Dig deep and give what you can to support this mission and help those veterans in need. You can donate through Chase Bank's Zelle app by adding America's Heroes Group as a recipient with our phone number 312-804-5831. You can donate through PayPal on our website, americashg.org. From the home page, go to donations, or you can go straight to www.americashg.org/donations. And finally, you can send a check to America's Heroes Group, Inc., 155 North Quaker Drive, Suite 4250, Chicago, Illinois, 60606.
Welcome back to America's Heroes Group with our Roundtable Mental Health Matters with our partner, NAMI, Contra, Costa. Today is Saturday, February 4th, 2023. February is Black History and American Heart Month. Our host is Cliff Kelley. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host, Army National Guard veteran. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have our partner back on the line, that is Gigi Crowder. She's the executive director of NAMI, Contra, Costa in California. NAMI is the National Alliance of Mental Illness, an advocacy group founded by family members of people with mental illness. He has a panelist today. That is Horatio S. Jones, senior pastor of Family Bible Fellowship, president and CEO of Tri-Cities Community Development in Newark, California. How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Thanks for
So we're going to talk about training to become mental health friendly using faith-based curriculum in the Black church. So tell us, how do you use faith-based curriculum, and how is that being used to train people to become mental health friendly? So I guess back this up. What is mental health friendly, first of all?
Well, I'll let Pastor Jones answer that question. I sought him out as I was working for Alameda County Behavioral Health Care to make sure that we were meeting the needs of African Americans who were in need of mental health supports, who first turned to their faith leaders when they were in a struggle. Pastor Jones, you want to answer that question?
Yes, so mental health, first of all, thank you so much for inviting us this afternoon, this much-needed dialogue and conversation regarding mental health within all communities, and particularly here in the month of February, the African American community. And so mental health friendly communities is a comprehensive grassroots program and strategy of providing services, partnership, and collaboration between the African American faith community, and then secondly, also with those who are providing services, mental health services to the African American faith community, and behavioral health care departments throughout the state of California and throughout our nation. It's comprehensive in that it does not focus on just one particular stakeholder group, but all three that have a direct impact on eliminating stigma as it relates to mental health, and then also improving outcomes for the African American community, and particularly as Gigi mentioned, the intersection of faith and mental health. All roads lead through the African American faith community, and so we work with faith leaders, we work with congregants, we work with providers within the faith community, so that we can build a bridge that enables us to have to connect the clinical approach and the spiritual approach to mental health to improve outcomes within our community. And we do so one congregation at a time.
Wow. So how effective has it been so far to be able to use the church as a mechanism or a vehicle to train people about mental health?
It's been very effective. We have had contracts with the various counties in California because in doing the work, and as we're doing now with Cal Hope, when individuals pick up the phone and call seeking support, one of the number one things they request is, will you pray with me? And so generally mental health systems haven't allowed one of the most essential tools, which is a relationship with faith and a belief that a part of the equation to healing is also embracing faith-based principles. So we've been able to look at why our African Americans experience such health disparities. And so we've come up with some what we call community-defined strategies, and most of which are based on godly principles of how to work with individuals. And so many African Americans that we've worked with have said, make comments like, I know that I'm dealing with this, but in addition to talking to me about a therapy session or my medications, I need you to also embrace what's most important to me, which is my faith practice.
And
then also to give you a practical, real-life example of how effective this training, and it's more so what we call a transformational. We created a word, transformational, and then it's transformative, and then it results in significantly changing and impacting the lives of individuals within the African American community and faith community. One example, Gigi, you can remember many years ago when we sponsored what are referred to as mental wellness fireside chats, And when we had one at our church as a follow-up to our training, and the focus was on suicide prevention and depression. And one of the individuals who was in attendance later, about a week or so, shared with me that her father, who was actually a veteran, had been living with clinical and chronic depression, but because of the stigma and so on, he wouldn't share it, and he wasn't open and vulnerable and transparent with his family. But as this daughter came to our training and learned from the perspective of her dad, and also from faith and how we as a community can advocate and support our and how to also talk with your family members and loved ones who are dealing with mental health stresses, she took those tools back to her father and was able to talk her father through the process of receiving the therapy and the help that he needed from his mental health providers. And she felt and was convinced that without that training, she potentially would not have had her father with her to that day.
Wow. Now, Pastor Jones, you understand faith, from a perspective, a Christian perspective. Is this open to other faiths? Particularly, in the African American community, there's a large Muslim population. So is it just particularly a Christian-based perspective, or is it crossover? Is it Abrahamic perspective, where it goes from Christian, Jewish, Muslim? Explain that part of it.
Well, it's across the board, and it's a faith. Our focus is, and our strategy is working with the faith community, and it's even beyond the African American faith community, but particularly here, a cornerstone of what Gigi had mentioned earlier that she invited me to. I think what was it, Gigi, in 2009 or 10? She invited me to, which is an integral part of our strategy, a clergy roundtable that was hosted, and all faiths are invited to that clergy roundtable, and it is there that they are exposed to the primary principles, what we call the 10 Commitments of a Mental Health Friendly Congregation. And it was there that all faith leaders of different faith communities are invited to. And so in our one of our first steps is that we host meetings in which we invite everyone. So the principles are translatable regardless to the faith. Actually, we've even had individuals, a part of our trainings, who have identified with no faith, but still have benefited from the trainings.
So that brings me to my next question, which was the tie-in to begin with. But how as a pastor, how can you explain what faith is and how it affects the mental part of trying to improve your health mentally, physically?
Well, Gigi can speak to this also from a because we also, it's a community defined strategy, but it's driven by the peer community, the consumer community. We actually don't define the faith. We allow the community to do so. And then without violating any of the principles and the tenets of their faith, how can you incorporate the principles that we're teaching? And again, it's more than teachings and trainings. It's really, it's a lifelong congregational or faith community transformation in which we give you the tools. So it's similar to in the scriptures when John the Baptist was ministering, and then when he saw Jesus, he said, it's time for me to decrease and for him to increase. And that's a part of our strategy, is for you to take these tools and to indigenize it to your particular faith community.
So, Gigi, what can you add to that? What is different about using a faith-based curriculum to have a bigger impact on just teaching people how to deal with mental health?
Well, we've actually been able, and it's been embraced for individuals who live with substance abuse when they do their steps to getting an understanding that they do not have to do this alone, and has just kind of been pushed away and not embraced for mental health. So we recognize that individuals who have had a history of struggling with their mental health, believing that, sometimes over-spiritualizing it and believing that they can just pray it away. We've been able to give those individuals and their families the tools how to integrate and understand how important it is to utilize the skill set. We have a pretty nationally known faith leader here in the California Bay Area who said that he had to reconcile with the fact that if he's on an airplane and he's having a heart attack, that of course he wants all the many faith leaders that he traveled with to continue praying for him, but he needs them to get out the way and allow the doctor who has been anointed with the skill set to support him so that he, so that he can get the medical. So too often in mental health, we will only treat above the neck once a person is diagnosed with a mental health disability. So we're taking a more holistic approach, but bringing all the essential partners in to make sure that this whole person care is embraced. And that's what's been kind of the challenge. We have never allowed that approach in our traditional teaching of how to serve someone who lives with a psychiatric disability. So we're just pushing the envelope in that area.
Well, why do you think it has been kind of like not used as a tool? Like we mentioned before, in Alcoholics Anonymous, it's a primary tool, and it's kind of the foundation of how AA works. It's basically taking those same a faith-based principle, a faith-based approach to try to use old ancient techniques to get people to change their lives. And most faith-based curriculums or faith-based religions in general are designed to change your life. They're designed to put you on a track to have a certain path of behavior. So what has changed where now people are starting to recognize this importance in the mental health community? Pastor, can you answer that?
Yes, Gigi can also. One of our cornerstone curriculums is called Spirituality 101. And so in that training, and that's primarily targeting providers and systems of care, and our primary clinician does an excellent job of approaching it from a historical and medical perspective as it relates to the vital role that faith and spirituality literally has always played, not just in mental health, but also in physical health. And it wasn't until certain periods of time in which that was suppressed. And we're seeing now that that is actually embraced more within the mental health field today than it was in the past. And one of the distinctions that we make as well, kind of alluding to your previous question, and I think helps as well, is that we draw a distinction between what faith is and what spirituality is. Those are two different perspectives. Faith is based upon a belief system that's generally connected to a religion. And in the faith or in a religious group, there is a belief in a power, and we was mentioned about AA, a power, source, a creator, or a sustainer greater than oneself that has the capacity and the ability to enable you to rise above your challenges. And you rely upon that relationship. You rely upon that belief system. And studies and surveys have seen that. Then we have, on the other hand, spirituality, which is not necessarily connected to a belief system, but it is connected to that individual. And so within our curriculum, we give room, and through Spirituality 101, we're able to then cover with a broad umbrella, which makes it much more easier for those who are providing services to embrace the faith of their clients, whether it's their faith or their spirituality, and then working with the what we do is we build those bridges between the two. We work with facilitating mental health friendly congregations and faith communities so that you're now able to work together to provide services for your client.
Now, Gigi, can you tell me a little bit more about how you help nonprofits? Because I think that's really, really critical, because when you're dealing with an individual, that person can go in and embrace it. How have you reached out to nonprofits to spread this message and this curriculum to those types of organizations?
So while I was working in Alameda County in the Bay Area, I was able to support an effort around reducing disparities for the African American community. So we knew that once we released our report, which is the African American Utilization Report, and we knew it had a strong connection with working with the faith leaders, that we wanted to have an opportunity to have nonprofits. So those who, as Pastor Jones said, were delivering the service have an opportunity to learn the community-defined strategy. So we were able to actually give a $1.8 million innovation grant that then allowed for continued community learning. And so we would go to the nonprofits that contract with the county systems and allow them to, through the lens of reducing disparities, understand the important role faith and spirituality plays for the African American community, 88% of whom identify as Christian, but with a desire to have that be included in their treatment planning. So we were able to do that. In California, we have a California Mental Health and Spirituality Initiative where our behavioral health directors across the state have acknowledged, and we did surveys for those directors, and 92% of them said that faith and spirituality should be included as a resource for reducing disparities and embracing the cultural differences. So that was across the board, not just specific to African Americans. So once you got the leadership, the decision makers on board with you, you didn't brush up against any of the conversations that often come up around separation of church and state.
So tell me this: how can churches and not-for-profits get your curriculum or learn your curriculum so they can use it in their churches? That's Pastor
Jones' website, if you want to share.
Yes, the one of the first, if we're allowed to give our email address, so that would be
for sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So it's Mary, Harry, Frank, Charlie, MHFC at Tri-Cities, CITIES, C as in cat, D as in dog, C as in cat.com. So that's the best way. Mental health friendly. It's MHFC at Tri-Cities, CDC.com.
And then, of course, NAMI nationally has a faith net. So at NAMI, they've been very progressive of recognizing the role faith and spirituality plays, not just for the peer, meaning the person who lives with mental health, but also the family member. So for many years, they have embraced the opportunity to have curriculum that would move the conversation forward across the nation.
Wow.
And each of us.
Yeah. How long is that curriculum? And is it something that you have to do over and over again, or is it like a one class or one session type of curriculum?
Well, what generally happens is we will approach a faith community, get the buy-in first from their faith leader, because that's really important. We call it the power of the mic, because misinformation across a pulpit can be very damaging. So once we get the faith leader and his team to commit to having a ministry team focused on mental health, and then they're following what we call our 10 commitments to becoming a mental health friendly faith community, then we're able to then move them through a process where it's a train the trainers model. We certainly can't be at every, location and sticking there for long periods of time. We have to have the individuals already there be able to continue the effort. So we've been in a position where in some counties we've been able to give grants so that those faith centers can look at the important key months, whether it be February. For the second week of February in California is Mental Health Awareness Week for African Americans. And so that's when a lot of activity. And then, of course, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And that's when a lot of the faith communities will lift up their trainings and retreats, et cetera, with a focus on mental health. And then also October, the first Tuesday of the first full week is, of course, Mental Health Day of Prayer. And some faith centers will definitely do some work on that day. So they continue to teach and learn throughout their community, but the expertise is actually usually already found in the church, because you're going to have someone who lives with it, you're going to have some clinicians there, and you're going to have family members who understand mental health and can dispel myths and stereotypes and replace it with accurate information our Mental Health 101 training goes through the most common mental health diagnosis, but we share with people, you will not leave here a subject matter expert able to diagnose anyone, but you'll carry more compassion and understanding with the knowledge you'll gain about the diagnosis.
And do you find most congregations, when you go to approach them about using healthcare, the healthcare system, and teaching them about what's going on inside the mind using science, is there a lot of pushback because they might say, well, no, I'm just going to pray it away. I don't need a doctor to do it. I'm just going to pray this away, make it go away. Do you see is there any kind of cultural abrasiveness when it comes to that? Because you kind of hinted to that a little bit, Gigi. Do you see that?
When we first started doing the training, we did have quite a few people who would sit back with their arms folded and were not necessarily embracing the idea. But I always ask people, anyone who has this belief that there should be a separation of church and state, please reach in your pocket and give me everything in there that said, in God we trust. And no one has ever given me a nickel. So we understand that we have to do the education. We don't proselytize. We're offering tools. And so in hospital settings, if you're going to be admitted, generally it's not called JACO anymore, but it used to be called JACO. They actually have to ask the individual in an inpatient setting what is their faith practice. And then they're thinking if anything goes wrong, we'll get someone from that community to come and offer ministry and counseling to the individual. We want that same level of concern and support in the mental health community.
Mm-hmm. And also within the faith community, there are three areas that we address in our training. One is the over-spiritualization, trivialization, and demonization of mental illness within the faith community. And the training has been so impactful. And again, it's more than just, a few hours of training, but the experience has been so impactful that we've had pastors who have actually come to some of our trainings and shared, as I had to when I was first exposed, and they went back to their congregations and apologized because they didn't realize how they were using language and illustrations and metaphors that further exasperated the pain that many of their members were living with, and also widening the wall and heightening the wall of stigma within our churches and our communities. And so that's been, for me personally, I had to go back and stand in the pulpit and apologize. I just didn't know. And so we've seen that initially sometimes within our congregations, and just about all of them, because of the misinformation, not truly understanding what it is and what it isn't. And then as they go through the training, it's like aha moment after aha moment that ultimately impacts the well-being of our congregant community.
So like the Bible says, go ahead.
I was going to say we've had the same, not necessarily apologies from clinicians, but someone saying, oh, now after taking the Spirituality 101, now I better understand why this person has shared with me they carry a belief that I need to be more inclusive about what's most important to them in their life. Like we heard statements like, if God doesn't heal me, I won't be healed. So the clinicians now are in a better position to understand they have to in some way embrace that as a tool toward healing for those they're treating.
Wow, 4 great shows today. Thank you, our partner, NAMI, Miss G. Crowder, for a wonderful, wonderful show. Thank all of our panel guests today, from the U.S. Secretary, McDonough's Office, Department of Veteran Affairs, to our partner, RHF, Ninja Warrior Competition, to military family caregivers, Keisha L. Jackson. Fantastic shows today. Fantastic shows. Regarding any information that's needed regarding America's Heroes Group, please feel free to give us a call at 312-803-2618. We're located at 155 North Waco Drive, Suite 4250, Chicago, Illinois. We're so grateful to our partner, Mrs. Dorothy Lavelle of the Chicago Crusaders, for the wonderful article that she prints on behalf of America's Heroes Group titled Voices. With Cliff Kelley, Sean Claiborne, Dr. Damon Honor, America's Heroes Group, please call Chicago Crusaders 773-752-2500 and request a subscription. To our digital media producer, one of the best in the world, Ivan Ortega, Scouts Honor Production. And to the smooth operator herself, Mrs. Lady Kaya, our technical engineer. On behalf of Sean Claiborne, myself, and America's Heroes Group, Cliff Kelley, Dr. Damon Arnold, have a wonderful and blessed weekend.